Hi, my name is Michelle Minot. Welcome to Biz and Breakfast with Michelle. The next 45 minutes can seriously change your life. I'm going to show you how to make strong financial decisions that can impact your future and change it for the better. With Michelle. I'm your host, Michelle Minot, and we have a great lineup of guests for you today. Our first guest, who is also a close personal friend, does so much in the community, is Francis Jeffers. He's the founder, curator, and executive director of the Canadian Multicultural Inventors Museum. He's also the founder and past executive director of Visions of Science Network for Learning, and is a partner in Jeffers Associates Diversity Organizational Development Consultancy. So I want to welcome, without further ado, our first guest, Francis Jeffers. Welcome. Hi, Francis.
Welcome, Michelle. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's so great to have you. Have a seat, please.
Thank you so much.
So, Francis, before we get started, I just want to, you have so many accolades. Like, as I'm looking you up, I'm realizing how much you do in the community. And I didn't know you did half the things you do.
I try to keep busy, keep me out of trouble.
To stay out of trouble,
yes.
Right?
But first of all, I want to say Happy Women's Month.
That's exactly right.
And it's just a pleasure to be here as we
That's
celebrate
right.
women in STEM. And you are an amazing contributor in terms of women in STEM and youth in STEM.
That's right. That's right. Well, I try. I stay busy to stay out of trouble like you, right? I just wanted to share with our audience the great accolades that you've achieved over the span of your career. You were the City of Markham's Ontario Black History Month Award recipient for community service, the Michael Pinball Clemens Award recipient for community leadership. You received an award for the Black U of T Alumni Award for Community Service, the U of T 40th Anniversary Alumni Award, the June Vreecock Award for Leadership, and last but not least, the Harry Jerome Community Service Award. Like, I was blown away.
No, I mean, it's just a pleasure. It's really giving
Yes.
thanks. As a person of African descent, you grow up with values and traditions that says that you're part of a community, you're part of a village, and it's just all of us giving our 2 cents into that village and making it happen.
Right.
So it's not just kudos to me; it's kudos to my ancestors and my parents,
Yes.
and hopefully my kids will continue to do that.
That's right. I agree with you. Okay, so you do so much. Tell me about a little bit that you do. So, for instance, let's start with Visions of Science Network for Learning.
So Vision of Science Network for Learning was all about having an organization in the African Canadian community, the Black community, contributing and celebrating, researching STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. We had no organization that focused on that. So therefore, it was saying that in the quest to change the low percentage of representation of people of African descent in STEM, it was important that we have our own organization. Representation is important, and leadership is important.
That's right.
So sometimes leadership comes not because it's by choice, but by circumstances. If there was not an organization doing STEM work, then we had to jump in and show that we can take responsibility for ourselves. I mean, I grew up as a Garveyite. Right, so
Right.
so you can't sit back and say, well, hey, I'm just gonna continue the way. You either take it and you got to move forward, and hopefully you bring people along with you who are gonna amplify the work that you do.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
That's right. One thing I loved for Visions of Science Network for Learning is that you absolutely brought the programming to the young people. So, for instance, you were within the community housing development. You did programming from that space that made it very easy and accessible for, let's say, a single parent to access your programming. I just thought that that was amazing.
I think we have to learn about our community, and then we decide how we're going to make change.
Yeah.
We can't take other people's pathway. We have to create our own pathways. The reality is that if you live in TCHC at the time, most times you then didn't go beyond a 2.5-mile radius of where they are. So then, therefore, it was no sense saying I have a fantastic program 5 miles away.
That's right.
All right, and say then, well, they come to me. You got to go to them. You got to be intentional in the work that you do, and that is what we want to do in everything that we do. With the same strategy that worked for Vision of Science, we're gonna empower you where you are at, right? And then once you do that, then hopefully then the youth or the families then continue that empowerment to their friends, because they will influence the others.
That's true.
And then therefore then your work then grows. And so that methodology came right into successfully with the traveling exhibits we do. You could have a great fancy museum, but it doesn't reach the people that you want to do. I can tell you that the Ontario Science Centre doesn't reach some of the low-income people and some of the marginalized people within 2 kilometers of them.
I get you.
Right?
That's true.
So then, therefore, what we need to do then is, if you know, then you need to go out and you have to meet the people where they're at, in the basement of a building, in a temple, in a mosque, in a synagogue, in a church, wherever people are, that is where you should be, influencing them, inspiring them, empowering them to take action.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree with you. Okay, so let's get into the Canadian Multicultural Inventors Museum. Tell us about that.
No, that was a blessing. So for 19 years, I ran a science symposium at the University of Toronto. And along that journey, I found out about this Black Inventors Museum in the United States. And I called up this organization, and Lady Salah Sabez said, oh, she'd love to come to Canada. And for another 7 years, she came to Canada. And we said, Salah, we're celebrating Black brilliance, but the exhibit is primarily African-American in scope. So how do we add Canadian content? How do we add African-British content? How do we add continental content, Caribbean content? And we got into, started to negotiate about building that kind of a global African presence.
Right.
Again, it's following, you know, what our people have done before. We take a global perspective. As African people, we have to take a global perspective. And so it was really, so Lady Sarah says, okay. And she says, okay, you know what? Let's negotiate something. But she's going to leave the exhibit with me when she's going back to California. And then later on, she'll come back 6 months later, and we'll work things out. Interestingly, Lady Sarah knew that she was not well.
Oh, wow.
And did not tell me.
Oh, no.
And within 6 months, she had passed away. But it's the kind of thing of when we talk about how the creator works.
Yes, that's right.
Right? She knew exactly what she was doing.
That's right.
She knew I respected her work, and I was going to grow the work, and I was going to celebrate Black brilliance. Right? Because at the same time, she had a bit of a dysfunctional board.
Okay.
So she left it in my hands. So I had no other choice. Sometimes the creator puts things in your hands.
That's right.
Right? The creator always knows what he's doing. And that's the thing for people of African descent. We don't celebrate our spirituality from our science. We take a holistic approach to the work that we do. Right? So then, therefore, that came into my hand. And Lady Salah, I know, is smiling always.
That's right. I think it's interesting because I think that after meeting you and knowing you, she knew that she could trust you with this legacy.
Right.
I think that's very powerful.
And that was powerful. And so, like, it's the kind of thing where, you know, it was a curveball in my life, but a very intentional one, and one that I'm very happy about.
That's right.
Yes.
And so how does this museum differ from others?
Again, we get back to that concept of that we're going to go to where the people are at.
Yes.
So when you look at any museum in Canada, even in terms of Canadian innovation, they don't have much that celebrates Canadian innovation. They might have 4 or 5 large installations, which is all nice. But again, we want to bring content to people. We want to bring diverse and inclusive content to people. So the only way we can do that is go to their communities, right? If you have people from 186 different countries in the world, you can, and they're not all coming to your institutions.
Right.
Because when you look at the demographics of any of the museums in Canada, they are not very diverse. So the question is, if we want to make a difference, if we want to celebrate our Canadianness, then we need to get people involved by going into the community, working with them, respecting them, getting them involved in the work that we do, right? So that is why we call it the Canadian Multicultural Inventors Museum, because when I went to schools with the African exhibit, kids from all different backgrounds are saying, well, we don't see ourselves in the curriculum.
Right.
We don't see ourselves, even Asian communities that are supposedly doing well in STEM, they didn't see themselves in the curriculum.
That's really true.
And they wanted to see something that reflected them. They
right.
wanted to see themselves in the science, which is very, in terms of the work that you do, in terms of youth taking flight, again, the youth are seeing themselves reflected in what they're being empowered about, right? So then, therefore, the work has to be very intentional, very focused, and people need to feel that they're empowered within that scope.
That's right.
And that is what we try to do for all communities. You know, this is Women's Month, and we're celebrating the wonderful work and the continuing contributions of women of all backgrounds in the world of STEM, right? And so, again, we're doing that with programs that make sense, that reach out to people. In the first week of April, we'll be launching a Sikh exhibit, showing innovators and icons in the Sikh community. Again, the Sikh people will be involved with the work that they do, talking about who they are.
Wow, that's amazing.
Right? It's not up to somebody else to say, this is who you are.
Exactly, I agree.
Representation and empowerment go together.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
And so that's what I really love about the museum, that it is so versatile.
Right.
And you actually tailor it to particular cultural community within the community. So what are some of the communities that you do cater to?
So we have a Tamil exhibit, we have a Filipino exhibit. It's interesting, I did a presentation to the Filipino Teachers Network, and one of the comments from one of the teachers, he says, Francis, did you come to embarrass us? Because we didn't know 5% of the people that you were representing there, right? So these are the kind of things where, you share with people, but you also tell them they are the center.
That's right.
And when people know that they are the center, that you respect them, they are quite willing to work with you. We have an East Asian exhibit, a South Asian exhibit. We launched an Islamic exhibit at Rita Parks Public School on March 21st. We'll feature Islamic innovators, and especially featuring people from the Somali community, right? Because we want everybody is special.
Yes.
Everybody has a story. They have a
right.
narrative, they have
That's
a culture,
right.
they have a philosophy.
That's
and
right.
that is what we're bringing forward. Working hand in hand with them, celebrating our Canadianness.
That's right.
And that is why when we go to the schools, that is a consistent message, that we're here, people of African descent, African Canadians are here. We're here to stay. We're not going anywhere. You know what I mean? My three kids are Canadian. My grandchildren are Canadian.
That's right.
We're not going anywhere. There's nobody at the corner of the street who's going to tell me go back to anywhere I come.
That's right.
But at the same time, my kids understand who they are as people of Caribbean descent, and also who they are as people of African descent.
That's right.
So that they're totally empowered on a global level.
I get you.
Yeah.
And so how long does it take to, you're preserving history. What is the process? How long does it take for you to research and get all this together?
As soon as the thought comes into my head, we start the process and we start running.
Wow.
You know what I mean? Because what we do well is taking information and packaging. It's not that information is not available. It's packaging that information and make it very intentional to celebrate diversity.
That's right.
It's not a joke. It's not a nice thing to do. It is what we do as the new Canada.
I get you. And so do you focus on a particular era, or do you go as far back in history?
We go back as far as we can. So when we talk about Africa, we talk about ancient Kemet, ancient Egypt. When we talk about India, South Asian, we go in the Indus Valley civilization of northern India. We go to ancient China. We want to talk about math. We go to ancient Iran and Iraq, and places where, what we do really also is correct information. You know, people talk about math, but they only talk about the Greeks. Where did Pythagoras' theorem come from? Not from Greece.
That's right.
The man studied for 20 years in ancient Egypt. They had trigonometry. You know,
Right.
so we're correcting those things and telling
Good.
institutions, no, those storylines, we're not accepting that anymore.
Good.
You're not writing the history anymore, right? We are presenting the history and presenting the truth.
That's right.
And if you believe in truth and reconciliation, then you got to accept what we do.
That's
and
right.
work with us.
And so who do you cater to? So for instance, I heard that you're in schools. Is any particular age group? And do you go to organizations as well?
We go to organizations, we do businesses, we go to schools all over. We start from kindergarten to university. We go to corporations. We work Chase Black History Month programming.
Okay.
We were the main center of that because Chase, from the States, again, is telling stories in the States, but they won't tell stories in Canada.
I understand.
So then, therefore, we say, we come to work with Chase employees and saying, this is our storylines. If you're in government or whatever, what can we contribute? How can we work with you?
Okay.
And our next guest, Kiran, has been working with me on that, of
Okay.
reaching out to different people and saying, we're here with you.
That's
We're going to work with you because this again, it comes back to our Canada. And we're going to celebrate STEM intentionally and widely, and we want to be able to take this and build this right across Canada.
That's amazing.
There's no child should be in Canada and not be able to know who they are.
That's true. I agree with you. Okay, so we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, you're going to show us a little bit about your museum, and we're going to look into some of the exhibits.
Absolutely. Thank you, Michelle.
So we'll be right back. Don't go away.
Thinking of buying or selling your home, but not sure where to start? Hi, my name is Deloshan Shanmulingam, and I'm here to help you with all your home buying and selling inquiries. With over 7 years of experience and a passion for real estate, I can provide you with expert advice and guidance for a stress-free experience. Contact me, Deloshan Shanmulingam, at 416-877-7834. There's a home out there for everyone. Let me help you find yours.
More Mortgaging. We do real estate financing and mortgages. We do purchases, refinances, first, second, and third mortgages, home equity loans, etc.
Are you looking for the perfect home or trying to navigate today's changing market? Whether you're buying or selling, contact Michelle Minot for real estate advice you can count on. For professional, reliable service, go to finditgta.ca or call 647-739-4663.
More Mortgaging. We do real estate financing and mortgages. We do purchases, refinances, first, second, and third mortgages, home equity loans, etc.
Are you looking for the perfect home or trying to navigate today's changing market? Whether you're buying or selling, contact Michelle Minot for real estate advice you can count on. For professional, reliable service, go to finditgta.ca or call 647-739-4663.
Thinking of buying or selling your home, but not sure where to start? Hi, my name is Deloshan Shanmulingam, and I'm here to help you with all your home buying and selling inquiries. With over 7 years of experience and a passion for real estate, I can provide you with expert advice and guidance for a stress-free experience. Contact me, Deloshan Shanmulingam, at 416-877-7834. There's a home out there for everyone. Let me help you find yours.
Hi, we're joined again by Francis Jeffers, the founder and head curator of the Canadian Multicultural Inventors Museum. So we have a display that he's brought to show us an example of this traveling museum. So take it away, Francis.
So what we do really is engage people in knowing about the innovators in STEM, right? And we do that by creating these traveling exhibits, right, which are quite simple, but provide a lot of powerful information. So this is an example of what our exhibit look like. So we'll have generally our minimum size is around 100 innovators. So imagine you come to a school and you have 100 innovators of whatever demographic that you're sharing with young people. So for example, if we look at the African exhibit, here we feature an amazing innovator. Velma Canterbury White was the first African-American professional in doing transplants. It's again bringing that information to young people to understand that they could be wherever they want to be. She was born in Barbados and moved to the United States and eventually established a medical career there. We have other people that we look at. For example, Josephine Cochran. Again, we share the history of people. When we talk about women in STEM, and this is what we're celebrating today, we're celebrating Josephine Cochran, who was the inventor of the dishwasher. A lot of times we had stories about, they're usually men, usually white, but we're not very inclusive.
That's right.
What we're stating is that, no, we have a different situation where we can show people that all kinds of people have made a difference. A lot of times we've learned about Florence Nightingale in terms of nursing. Well, Mary Seacole, who was born in Jamaica, was chosen as the #1 black Brit in history. Mary Seacole was a nurse whose contributions during the war effort established the fact that nursing is a profession and that actually where people of color have taken a very decisive role. And especially in the West, you know that you can't do it without black nurses and Filipino nurses, right? so this is the kind of thing where we're making history real and saying that there have been innovators in those fields, right? And we're sharing that information. When we talk about indigenous people, there's nothing in the curriculum that tells you about indigenous people as innovators. They tell you about them as artists, sculptors, etc., and they're very zen. That does not encompass the full reality of the indigenous community. They have innovators like Dr. Candice Greer-Lowe, who was the first veterinary dentist in the world. She's Canadian from the University of Saskatchewan. Okay, is making people understand the facts. We're not hiding anywhere. We're no longer going to have any hidden figures. We're going to bring things forward.
That's right.
And this is Dr. Vivian Poi, who brought the concept forward about Asian Heritage Month. Similar how Jean Augustine brought to the House of Commons the concept of Black History Month in Canada.
That's right.
Everywhere along the line, diverse Canadians are making a difference. Diverse Canadian women are making a difference. Michelle is making a difference.
Thank you.
So we are not taking second best to anybody. We are here, we will be part, we are working, we're going to empower youth. Do we have issues? Of course, we always have issues. But again, are there people who are given the space to go out and create a landscape that empowers people? And that is the Canadian story.
That's amazing. So tell me, that's exciting. I'm excited just hearing you, You're so passionate about what you do, and I so appreciate that. Tell me what's next for you, what's coming up.
So this month is really special. We're celebrating women in STEM. We have workshops. We are curating the Clark Center for the Arts, which is at 191 Gilwood Parkway in Scarborough. We're going to have amazing speakers, sharing and workshops. Everything we do has talks in it, but it always has to have a hands-on component, right? So we're going to have special guests like Lorna Green, who's an amazing Jamaican IT entrepreneur. She had the first animation company in the Caribbean. She's, in terms of engineering and technology, she is an icon in the Caribbean. She's launching her book for children on the 18th. We have a space scientist, Dr. Shankar, talking about space science. We have Dr. Donaldson, an aerospace engineer, talking about aerospace engineering. We have Leslie Page, who is a pilot and motivational speaker.
Okay, and then you have also a children's program that I just saw.
Yes, it's all about hands-on stuff for
That's
kids.
right.
And Kiran is going to talk a bit more about that.
Okay.
But it's just a wonderful time of just celebrating our women.
Okay, so thank you so much.
Thank you. It's
Francis,
just a pleasure being here.
It's really a pleasure having you. And we're going to take a short commercial break and welcome our next guest, Kiran Phillips, to the show. So we'll be right back.
More mortgaging. We do real estate financing and mortgages. We do purchases, refinances, first, second, and third mortgages, home equity loans, etc.
Are you looking for the perfect home or trying to navigate today's changing market? Whether you're buying or selling, contact Michelle Minot for real estate advice you can count on. For professional and reliable service, go to finditgta.ca or call 647-739-4663.
Thinking of buying or selling your home, but not sure where to start? Hi, my name is Deloshan Shanmulingam, and I'm here to help you with all your home buying and selling inquiries. With over 7 years of experience and a passion for real estate, I can provide you with expert advice and guidance for a stress-free experience. Contact me, Deloshan Shanmulingam, at 416-877-7834. There's a home out there for everyone. Let me help you find yours.
More mortgaging. We do real estate financing and mortgages. We do purchases, refinances, first, second, and third mortgages, home equity loans, etc.
Are you looking for the perfect home or trying to navigate today's changing market? Whether you're buying or selling, contact Michelle Minot for real estate advice you can count on. For professional and reliable service, go to finditgta.ca or call 647-739-4663. Back to Biz and Breakfast with Michelle. I have our second guest joining us today, Kiran Phillips. He is a forensic scientist, science communicator, consultant, keynote speaker, and founder of Sure Science Consulting. He, in 2018, managed the National Forensics Laboratory in St. Kitts and Nevis. Welcome. Oh my gosh, that's a big resume. Hi, how are you?
I'm doing well, Michelle. Thanks a lot for the opportunity to be here with you
Of
on Biz and
course.
Breakfast.
It's a pleasure. Tell us about Sure Science Consulting.
Well, Sure Science Consulting started long before I actually thought of myself as a consultant, really.
Right.
But people around you in your community, when they see value in each other and when they see value in you,
That's
you know,
right.
it's always a very empowering thing. And what happened was, when I was living in St. Kitts, just after finishing my master's degree, a friend of mine wanted to study chemistry at high school level. And he said that, man, I know that you are the person that could teach me this and help
Wow,
me with
okay.
this.
Look at
So
this.
he actually, you know, he was really insistent that I would be his tutor.
Okay.
And I said, man, you know, I think I can do the thing for you. So we actually set up some classes, and that's really what I would say was the genesis of Sure Science Consulting. And what I really like about what we do is that we provide people with answers to complex questions.
Okay.
Sometimes it's complex questions about learning chemistry at high school.
Yes.
Sometimes it's complex questions about how do we teach people science in a culturally relevant way.
That's
You know, so
good.
I provide people with accurate and reliable information
Okay.
to help them answer these complex questions.
Okay. Who is your target audience for the company?
Well, mainly, I'm looking at people who, in general, they want to solve some kind of problem or they want to achieve, you know, better results for themselves
Yes.
in their laboratories, or even persons who want to study science and they're having a difficult time. So that's really what I focus on. You know, it's
Okay.
usually looking at people right now, for sure, looking at people who are studying the sciences or studying STEM.
Okay.
And they want to know more about, you know, how they can really achieve success in
That's
STEM
right.
education.
That's right. And so you're a forensic scientist, okay? So explain to us what kind of education it takes to become that, and explain what forensic science really is. I know that's probably a big, a big question.
Yes, yes. So let me go to the second question
Yes.
first. So forensic science is, well, how I would describe it. It is using scientific knowledge and scientific techniques to answer the question, what is true? All right? That is mainly what forensic science is about. It's really about using these scientific techniques to answer questions like, who is involved? You know, what is this material that we found? You know, who did it come from?
Right.
Right? And by answering those questions, you could provide accurate and reliable information
Okay.
about who is responsible for these actions that have taken place. And once you know who is responsible, then you could say, all right, how do we make it better? How do they be accountable for these actions? And that accountability aspect is how we get to justice.
I
So
understand.
forensic science is about answering that first question. You want to know the
Okay.
truth, then you want to know who is responsible, and then you need to know how we can hold them accountable.
Okay. So are there many disciplines within the forensic science field?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. I like to talk about the forensic sciences, you know, plural, because
Yes.
there are several different disciplines.
Yes.
So you may have heard of something called DNA analysis.
That's right.
That's under the branch.
From watching CSI and all of those great shows, right?
So there's actually a branch of forensic science that we speak about as forensic DNA analysis. It comes from
Okay.
forensic biology.
Okay.
And, you know, you may have heard of something called fingerprints.
Yes.
So looking at fingerprints and fingerprint examination, that comes from a branch that we call pattern analysis in the
Okay.
forensic sciences. And lastly, I'll tell you about something that I went to school for. It's looking at the variety of materials that are not biological or not drug-related. So
Okay.
everything else that is not drugs or not biological, we look at that as material analysis and using the tools of chemistry to answer the question of what this is.
So I found interesting as I was trolling you online that you were the first civilian hired to join the forensic science team for St. Kitts and Nevis.
Yes.
So tell us about that and that. What an experience!
Indeed. So I was very fortunate
Yeah.
to be someone who was employed in my own country in a field that I studied in. You know, that is something that I'm always going to be grateful for.
Right.
So what happened was in 2013, I completed my master's degree in forensic science. Previous to that, in the year 2011, I completed a Bachelor of Science degree in chemistry.
Okay.
So I did my bachelor's degree in the University of the Virgin Islands and my master's degree at the Virginia Commonwealth University. And I was looking for a job in the States, was not able to find one. So in November of 2013, I was actually given an internship position,
Okay.
working with the police as the first person that they would have on their team at the time who was a civilian doing crime scene investigation.
Wow.
And things worked out well for me because
Wow.
in February of 2014, they offered me the position full time. And that's me, you know, as a pioneer. It wasn't
Wow.
easy.
I can imagine that must have been very difficult.
Yes, you know, I was coming into a totally different context because,
Yes.
like I mentioned, I was the first ever person who was a civilian to work on that team. And the context was very much that, you know, career police officers, they saw that as a very valuable position to be in, you know,
Okay.
somewhere that they were striving to get towards.
Oh,
you know?
I understand.
But as a scientist, you know, as a civilian scientist,
That's right.
I had value that I knew I could add in that
I
position.
understand.
You know, and I worked very hard to prove to people, you know, that this was
Yes.
something that was going to be not only beneficial for myself, beneficial for the team, beneficial for the country.
That's right.
You know? So it was a tough experience in some ways, but it was very fulfilling and very worthwhile.
Yes.
And I like to tell people that the legacy that I left behind in St. Kitts and Nevis is that at the time that I left my position, I was actually training 3 civilians also to join the team.
Wow.
So that's
Wow, I
something
think
that I'm
that's
very
so
proud
amazing because not being a non-civilian, I guess, would understand the chain of command and that sort of.
Precisely,
So coming
precisely.
in as a civilian, wouldn't you have more of a fresh take on, you know, in terms of ideas, in terms of how to do things, do you find?
Definitely, and that's really why diversity is important.
Yes.
You know, because I like to tell people that when you have a team operating on the principles of diversity, equity,
That's
and
right.
inclusion, what you're actually doing is you're making a quantum leap for the team. It's not like a smooth rise. It's like you're taking another step and another step up to a new level where you
That's
never
right.
thought the team could get to.
That's
So when you
right.
have these fresh perspectives, or when you have diverse perspectives, and you make sure things like women are included in decision-making processes, you know, all these things really build to a point where we could make giant leaps forward and really
Right.
advance the work that we do in a way that we never thought possible before.
Right. I also found that you were the first fingerprint examiner to make an identification from latent prints developed by chemical treatment at the laboratory. Explain that.
Right. So in 2018, we commissioned the first ever forensic laboratory in the country of St. Kitts and Nevis.
Wow.
And what we focused on at that laboratory was chemical development on items that were collected at crime scenes so that we could develop fingerprints on them that we could later
Okay.
use to
In solving crime and so forth.
precisely. So we could actually
Wow.
develop these fingerprints on items that collected by CSIs and
Yes.
use those fingerprints to try to answer the question of possibly
That's
who
right.
was here, who was involved
That's
in this
right.
activity. So what chemical treatment actually is using a variety of reagents and equipment to make the invisible visible. Right?
Wow.
Because on the skin of our hands,
That's right.
we have what are called friction ridges. And when we touch things, we actually leave a little bit of sweat, or we may leave a little bit of sweat behind in the pattern of our friction ridges. And each of us have unique friction ridge patterns on our fingers. So by developing fingerprints, or looking at the characteristics of sweat, both the chemical and physical, we could exploit the chemical and physical characteristics to make fingerprints visible, because we touch a lot of things and we don't always see fingerprints, but we may be leaving that sweat behind, and we may be able to use that to develop fingerprints, visualize them, and then compare them on a database to try and identify whose fingerprint this may be.
I find that so fascinating. Just listening to you, I'm fascinated. And I'm like, why didn't I become a forensic scientist? I would have loved to do something like that. I just find those things just so interesting. What do you find to be your most memorable success story?
Well, like you mentioned, I was the first fingerprint examiner to make an identification from an item that was actually chemically treated at our laboratory. And the case that I was involved in was actually the murder of one of my colleagues. He was a police officer, a sergeant of police. He was a very entrepreneurial gentleman as well. So he actually had his own business. He had a bar in his local community, very well patronized, well respected in his community. Unfortunately, two persons attempted to rob his patrons, actually. And they knew that he was there. And for some reason, an altercation occurred between him and one of the assailants, and he ended up being shot and killed. And we were later able to find an item, close to a place where a suspect was staying. And on that item, I was able to chemically treat it using a variety of different methods, and then also digitally enhance the developed fingerprint so that we could actually confirm that the suspect was at one point in contact with this item. And so that was really what I would say, it was a big success for the lab because we proved that this work is valuable. It can give us accurate and reliable information that's going to help us make, hopefully a good decision about the guilt or innocence of this person.
And also, why do you think it's important to increase the visibility of people of color in STEM?
Well, like I mentioned, when you have these diverse teams, I mean, you have teams operating truly in an equitable manner where everybody is included, you can actually make advancements far beyond what we thought were generally possible.
That's right.
So for me, as somebody from the Caribbean, I look at how science has been used to extract our resources, extract resources from our environments in our small islands, and also extract our human resource as well.
That's right.
When we teach black people in particular the principles of STEM and we let them know the possibilities of the careers in STEM that they can be involved in.
So many.
Right. We could really change the paradigm and change how we operate in terms of resource extraction.
That's right. And so tell me, as we're wrapping up, how can people get in touch with you?
Well, I'm available on all, well, not all, but on the social media. You could
Okay.
find me on LinkedIn. If you just search for Kieran Phillip, you could also find me on Facebook. Again, if you search for Kieran Phillip. I run a small consulting company called Sure Science Consulting, and that is surescienceconsulting@gmail.com. You know, definitely send me an email, and we can see how we could work together to help answer your complex questions.
That's
And
right.
hopefully, I will provide you with accurate and reliable information.
Okay, that's wonderful. Okay, so thank you for joining us for our show, Biz and Breakfast with Michelle. Just join us again next time. Take care.